Books on Tape presents Alison's Automotive Repair Manual, a novel, by Barkley, read by Carrington MacDuffie. Chapter 1. The garage was no more than a decaying shack, covered in torn asphalt shingles, tilting at the end of a long gravel driveway. Alison Durst squinted against the late afternoon sun, waiting for her brother-in-law to open the garage door. Bill tried several keys, shook his head at each one, until finally the rusted lock clicked open. Alison and her sister, Sarah, helped him pull as the door slid upward, angled and creaking, dropping fragments of broken window glass. They ducked under a low-beamed ceiling hung with cracked garden hoses, a sled dangling from a nail, and strands of Christmas bulbs, into a stilled grayness, slats of light flecked with dust motes. In one corner leaned a bent snow shovel, and a badminton net scrolled around its aluminum poles, and in the other a tangle of tomato stakes and twine, a wooden cutout of a reindeer, the edges worn and feathery. And at the center of all the clutter sat a junked Corvette, covered in dust, the tires mushy, silver paint peeling in strips. "Well, you asked, so now you've seen the famous car," Sarah said, rubbing dirt off her hands. She snapped on a light bulb hanging from an extension cord, half an old coffee can for a lampshade. The jarring light draped everything with shadow. The floor was nothing more than packed dirt, the air full of wet smells, the car's interior a dull maroon, stringy with cobwebs. "Famous like what, the Hindenburg, the Titanic?" Alison said. It was about the saddest car she'd ever seen. It looked fossilized. "How much did you pay for it? Or did they pay you?" "My nephew defaulted on the loan," Bill said. "We'd co-signed. 1,500 later, boom, there you are." He gestured at the Corvette. Earlier that afternoon, Bill and Sarah had argued over how much money to send that same nephew for his 18th birthday, which was how the subject of the car came up in the first place. Until then, Alison had never heard of it, never bothered to even peek in the garage. Sarah had wanted to send a card that read, "You now owe us only $1,400. Happy birthday." "Deadbeat, nephew," Sarah said, frowning at the car. "You forgot deadbeat." Now, Alison said, "some of our best relatives are deadbeats." This came out wrong. Too quickly she thought of Marty and turned away, pretending to inspect the paint. "We sank most of our money into 8-track tapes," Sarah said. "Want to see those too?" Alison looked at her sister and smirked. Sarah gave her back an identical smirk, her own dimples, like Alison's, lengthened by age into creases edging her mouth. Their father had pegged them the twins, though Sarah was 2 years older. Even now, halfway through their 30s, they both still had the same graying corkscrew hair, the same slight hips and breasts, arms so long they would hold them awkwardly, crossing and uncrossing them, jamming their hands in their pockets. "How does it drive?" Alison asked. Bill shrugged. "We never actually drove it. Tow truck backed it in, and that was that." Alison walked around the car, stepping over a weed eater, a tangle of tire chains. "And you've had this how long?" she asked. "A long time, too long," Sarah said. "I keep telling Bill, let's just scrap the thing." "Well, I can't believe you never told Marty about it," Alison said. "You didn't need to scrap it." Marty would have insisted on saving the car, the way he'd saved console stereos and televisions, his VW van, the Pong video game from the bowling alley. He had rescued obsolete things the way other people rescued dogs from the pound. Things were more pitiful than people, he'd told her once, because when they got old and wore out, they didn't have guilty relatives around to pretend otherwise. The pack rat's apologist, she'd called him. Sarah said something else about the car, but Alison only half heard her. She was lost in thought, absently trying to list the 66 British monarchs, the same list she used to let her students memorize for extra credit. Ethelwulf, Ethelbald, Alfred the Great. She did this unconsciously, a habit she'd acquired in grad school and carried over into her teaching, her version, she thought of it, of biting fingernails or tapping pencils. It annoyed her, had annoyed Marty when they'd sit on the couch to watch a ball game and he'd glance over and catch her squinting at the ceiling, her lips barely moving. But for these past months she'd indulged the habit rather than hiding it away. Better this obsessive cataloging of the past than growing silent and brooding over some Jeep commercial on TV or a rack of flannel shirts at Sears. It was a distraction, a noisy game. Without it, she would catch herself thinking of Marty in the present tense, as if he were only off somewhere in the woods riding dirt bike trails, or in the basement drinking coffee with Lem Kearns. Or worse, she would think of the morning of the day he died, those hours beginning their ugly echo inside her. And so she would close her eyes and start listing the monarchs, the Bill of Rights, the names of the popes, the divisions of the Magna Carta, muttering like the old ladies in church bent over their rosaries. But she could never keep it all in her mind, couldn't recall if the third concern of the Magna Carta dealt with royal forests or towns and trades, or who succeeded Edward the Elder. The past, like the present, seemed a shifty, deceitful thing. "Did you hear me?" Sarah said. Alison looked at her sister. "Allie, I'm trying to tell you," Sarah said. "We got the car after Marty's accident, a few weeks after." "Well," Alison said, "when you said a long time, I just thought—" "It has been a long time," Sarah said, too quickly. Bill busied himself untangling the tire chains. 2 years now, Sarah added. Alison looked away, her eyes adjusting to the dim light of the garage. "Thanks for the update," she said. In the dust blanketing the hood of the car, she scrawled "Wash me" with the tip of her finger. She could cry right then if she nudged herself over into it. Or she could nudge herself the other way and smash the windshield of the car, throw things at people she loved. Heat tightened around her chest, her eyes warming. She breathed the smell of fertilizer and rust, of wet dirt, gasoline, old leather. Sarah sighed. "Okay, listen. 6 months ago, we'd have probably lied about having any car, knowing it'd make you think of Marty. Wouldn't we, Bill?" Bill smiled and shrugged, his face pink, hair neatly parted, as if he were about to have his school picture taken. He looked at Sarah and said, "That's exactly right." Good old Bill, always so agreeable, so embarrassed by all of this. Alison felt grateful then that he'd gone along with her moving in, dragging the mess of her life behind her. "So that's probably a good sign, don't you think?" Sarah said. Alison shrugged, then nodded. How did she know if it was good or not? Maybe she should have looked it up in one of those god-awful books that friends had pressed on her in the weeks after the accident. A Path Through Grief was one title she remembered. Embrace the Silence, The Passages of Living. Like the names of the soap operas her mother used to watch at the laundromat while she folded bath towels. The only help any of those books provided had been in giving her someone to resent for a few distracting weeks. She would open the back flaps, look at those smiling book jacket faces, read the overview with its blueprint for grief. As if all those experts had gotten together to scout the emptiness of her first months after, to chart the topography of her loss. She read enough to figure out that they didn't know much beyond how to sell books to vulnerable people. The first night she arrived at Sarah's, she'd walked out in the dark and flung the stack of them as far as she could, one by one, into the lake. "You know what?" Sarah said, awkward, her words clumsy. "This 2-year mark coming up, I think that will be your time, when you're, back on your feet." The two of them stood watching her. Sarah had said the same thing at the 6-month mark, the 1-year mark, and again at 18 months. And the statement had slowly bent itself into a question, just as
Sample complete. Ready to continue?